This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the best all-in-one platform for all of your website building needs. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and a few weeks ago I opened up to you guys about how and why this channel has changed. For a lot of reasons, my videos have shifted towards relatively serious commentary delivered in a relatively professional essay format, and in the process they've lost a lot of the authenticity that they had when I was more comfortable sharing more of, well, me with you. And I don't plan on changing my content, to be clear. I still want to do serious commentary, and I'm still going to. But as often as I can, I want to balance that out with videos that are just honest. Not made to be essays presenting a point, but just being real with you about my thoughts about and experiences with art, like I used to. Because there's value in that, and I think I forgot that in my desperation to present Phoenix Wright objection arguments whenever possible instead. Sometimes it's just as important to talk about how it really is rather than how I think it should be. And that's what I want to do with today's video, because, okay, I've talked many times before about why I think it's a bad idea to make art your job just because you love it. I and many others have spoken at length about how it's liable to burn you out creatively, turn your passion into an obligation, obliterate the balance in your life by turning your hobby into your job, and a million other potential pitfalls. And I do stand by that. It's true, or at least very frequently has the potential to be. But I knew that, and I still did it. And it feels disingenuous for me not to talk about the fact that I've spent a decade regretting it as a result. I don't want to sit here and tell you, don't make art your job because it might ruin it, without honestly sharing the fact that that's exactly what I did for a very long time. Because like, yeah, that's easy for me to say. It didn't stop me from doing it anyway. And I thought maybe it would be valuable to share why and how that actually turned out. Because I've been doing art professionally for a pretty long time now, and I've spent the majority of that time hating it, and still doing it anyway. And maybe that realistic perspective is more important than advice not to do the same. To clarify, I don't hate it anymore. Far from it. After years of wishing I hadn't ruined my passion by turning it into my job, I've actually finally found that eventually turning it into my job helped me find my passion for it again and enjoy making art more than I ever did before. It just took time, introspection, trial and error, and failure to figure out how to. And since I keep telling you guys not to do exactly what I did, I figure I owe it to you to be honest about why I did it anyway, and what it was really like, especially now that I have the perspective of both the darkness of the tunnel and the light at the end of it. Maybe it'll help you make your own decisions if you're considering a similar path. But first, real quick, let me take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. You know how people pathologically comment first on YouTube videos when they just come out? Yeah, they are so common that YouTubers effectively accept them as a fact of life. But comments asking where Squarespace is when I start a video without talking about them are actually more common than even those on my channel, because I've been rambling about how much I love them for so long that it's jarring enough to warrant that when I don't. And I'm correct to ramble about them, because I genuinely believe they're the best website building and hosting platform out there, something I learned firsthand by building my personal Duchess Celestia portfolio site there long before I started working with them. Their tools and templates made showcasing my work so easy and fun that they're always my first recommendation for any artist looking to do the same. But honestly, portfolios are really just the tip of the iceberg. Squarespace makes it just as easy to take your site to the next level by turning it into an online store, with all of the tools that you could possibly need, that let you do everything from managing payments and inventory to shipping and fulfillment. They even have SEO tools that'll help you get more eyes on it and maximize the number of customers shopping with you. And selling physical goods is just the beginning. They've got just as many options to let you sell services too. Consultations, event management, editing, even art commissions. Their tools make selling anything easy, with a streamlined workflow, built-in appointment scheduling, email marketing tools, and so much more. And your customers have just as many options as you do too. They offer all of the most popular payment methods like Klarna, ACH Direct Debit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, and ClearPay, and even allow you the option to send individualized branded invoices to specific clients, so you can start accepting orders from all around the world with just a few clicks. Whether you're an artist in need of a portfolio, an entrepreneur building an online store, a creator setting up an interactive blog, or a small business owner making a landing page, Squarespace is the place to do it. And you can find out yourself by going to squarespace.com to get your own free trial today. And once you've built the perfect site that you're ready to launch, you can get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain by going to squarespace.com/DuchessCelestia, linked in the description. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and please go check them out. But let's get back to the rambling. Back when I was still just a little guy and not an old lady, I heard a lot of the same advice that I've given you guys. If you love art, don't make it your job because it'll ruin it for you. But I loved it so much that I sincerely believed I would be the exception. I even used to look down on people who ended up having art ruined by pursuing it professionally, because clearly that was just because they didn't love it enough, and I would never be like them. I was very, very sure that so long as I was making art in some capacity, I would love it and I would be happy. And that was really, really naive, because it ended up making me absolutely miserable for the first 99% of my career, and sucked every ounce of joy out of the creative process in ways I never would have expected. Which makes it seem hypocritical for me to make videos talking about how to make art into your job when I myself wished I hadn't for such a long time. And in the beginning, it probably was, albeit unintentionally. I was trying to convince myself that I hadn't ruined art for myself by pursuing it professionally because I didn't have the option to back out. So it was less, I'm gonna sell you on this false ideal of of making art your job, and more, I've made art my job and I have no alternative but to continue to, so I'm gonna sell myself on reasons not to regret that. It was basically an embarrassing number of years spent in denial, something I didn't even realize until recently. It's easy to get used to hating something when you don't really recognize that you do, but I did hate it. Making art my job made me hate it, whether I wanted to admit it or not. And while I think it's important to admit that now, I think it's equally important to explain that the reason I'm still here making these videos is because I don't anymore. It was worth it to me in the end, and I don't hate it now. It just happened to be a very, very long and dark tunnel before it led to a light at the end. I only recently fell back in love with art again, and I encourage people to pursue it professionally if they truly love it, because doing so was worth it to me. But I also realize now that I owe it to them, to you, to explain how much it took to get to that point, because it might not be worth it to everyone. And that's for a couple of main reasons, at least in my experience. The first is one that I've mentioned before, that you might not fully understand what it is about art that you love so much. Like most people, I became an artist because I loved making art more than anything else, and I made it my job because I assumed making it alone was what was giving me so much joy, and I'd therefore enjoy it just as much no matter what I was drawing. I didn't realize until it was too late that a lot of that joy, the vast majority really, came from the fact that I was drawing what I wanted to draw. I was enjoying the creative process primarily because I was creating something I was personally passionate about and inspired by, not because the creative process itself made me that happy. That joy was increasingly absent when working for other people, and it became abundantly clear over time that I had been very naive and short-sighted in believing that just making art was what I loved so much that I would enjoy making it for others with no regard for my own ideas. I said in a previous video that it's like becoming a baker because you love cookies. You're not gonna enjoy it if you don't get to eat the cookies you bake. It'll be just as draining as any other day job if the baking process itself doesn't make you just as happy as eating the final result. I guess I was just really sure that I loved baking without ever trying baking without eating what I baked after, so to speak. I had never baked for the sake of baking, not eating what I made, and I underestimated how much of a difference it would make if I was suddenly not able to. I didn't like baking if I didn't get to eat what I baked. I didn't like drawing if I wasn't drawing my own ideas. Looking back now though, I don't know if that's true. I think a lot of my disappointment came from the fact that I was so used to eating the cookies that I didn't pay enough attention to the baking process to learn to love it without them. Honestly, maybe I finally realized that because the metaphor became literal. I've loved baking for my whole life, and then I got sick and now I can't eat sugar. For the first while, that made me completely lose interest. If I couldn't eat what I baked, what was the point? And then eventually, once I came to terms with things and stopped associating baking with eating, I realized how much I actually enjoyed making the food, even if I didn't get to have it myself. It meant buying ingredients, listening to the soundtrack of Repo the Genetic Opera and singing every word while I mixed them, dancing around my kitchen the entire time like an idiot, tweaking recipes and experimenting to make them better, watching banana bread rise and cookies flatten, and giving them to people I loved who could enjoy them and seeing them smile when they took a bite. That became just as valuable to me as the bites that I used to be able to take myself. I learned to value the process as much as I used to value the result. I was so disappointed by the lack of cookies after baking that I couldn't see how much I liked baking itself. But once I stopped expecting them, I could. I think it ended up being the same with art. I spent a very long time resenting the fact that in order to pay rent, all of the art that I wanted to make had to be put on hold until the art that other people wanted was done. And I was so focused on that I wasn't able to see the parts of bringing other people's ideas to life that I loved. And as it turns out, it's actually more rewarding than words can express to have the privilege of visualizing someone else's ideas. Having someone trust you enough to say, here's a vision I have that's so important to me that I want to pay someone to make it real. Can you do that? There's something so uniquely beautiful about that. And you can only really appreciate that for what it is once you've separated art as an end result from the process of making it. It used to burn me out so much to draw other people's characters, their scenarios, their stories. Because prior to that, the only part of art that I knew how to love was the visualization of my own. And I started to hate making it without that. I resented clients for paying me to. I resented myself for relying on them to. It felt hollow and meaningless if my own inspiration wasn't giving it meaning. But shit, dude, it's not. You get to be the person someone goes to when they want to see the character they've spent hours upon hours developing brought to life. You get to be the person who makes the cover for the book they've poured all of their passion into writing, who has the honor of presenting the world and the characters they wrote to everyone who reads it. You get to help them bring their virtual selves to the communities they want to connect with by making their VTuber models or their graphics or their icons. That's not an obligation or a burden or something that takes away from your creativity. You're being trusted to express someone else's. And once you stop comparing that to expressing your own, you can see how amazing it really is. It just took me a really long time to understand that, I guess. It might for a lot of people. They're just such different experiences that you kind of expect to be the same. And you can only really see their individual value when you learn how to peel them away from each other. Like I said though, there were a lot of reasons that making art my job almost wasn't worth it for me, and that's just one of them. Another one is burnout. Because I wasn't able to separate what I enjoyed about drawing from what I enjoyed about expressing my own ideas, I wasn't able to separate them into two different practices. Art was my biggest hobby and my full-time job, and merging those healthfully would have meant making time for both as their own things, but I didn't really get that. I thought thought doing art as a job would satisfy my need to do it as a hobby, because they were the same thing. I thought work art would give me hobby art dopamine, and that was not the case. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned looking back. When people say not to make your passion your job because it sucks the joy out of it, it's less because you stop enjoying that passion and more because you lose sight of the difference between indulging it for yourself and doing it professionally. It's incredibly difficult to draw the line between art that's scratching the creative itch in your brain and giving you dopamine, and art that's fundamentally just a paycheck, no matter how grateful you are to be in a position to make it for your clients. And if you expect the latter to fully satisfy your creativity, you're setting yourself up to fail, at least for most people. Like I said, they're different experiences, and they're rewarding in different ways. The artist in you isn't going to be satisfied in the same way by bringing someone else's ideas to life as it will be by bringing your own to life, because they're different needs being satisfied. It's so easy to burn out when you expect one thing to satisfy both, no matter which one it is that you're prioritizing. And I personally could not enjoy doing this as a job before I learned to separate them and devote time to both. But don't worry, that's not the only thing I hated about making art my job for so long. My pessimism knows no bounds. It's an indefinitely renewable resource. I also hated how hard it was. For example, if you started running today without ever having done it before, half a mile would probably win you immediately and feel pretty much impossible. That in mind, when you want to run anyway because you want to improve your fitness or run a marathon, that's gonna feel like it's worth it. But if someone's just paying you $2 to, it's probably not. You're probably gonna resent having to be that exhausted for so little because it gave you no personal reward beyond the financial. Art's the same. Until you're practiced enough at it, it's hard to make work that's of a high enough quality to give to a client with confidence. It takes so much effort. It forces you to struggle to get good enough to do it, and having solely a financial reward can make the whole process feel like it's more exhausting than it is worth it. It's basically the same struggle to work yourself to the bone for a paycheck that you would face at any other day job. Yeah, it's just as hard to make art for yourself at that skill level, but doing so also rewards you on a personal level. You get to express your own ideas. You get to enjoy the final product because it's what you wanted it to be. It means something to you. It's not just rent money. And when you add on to that the fact that there's immeasurably more pressure, it becomes borderline unbearable. When you're making art just for you, the worst possible outcome is that you'll be disappointed with it. When it's for a paying customer, you risk making them unhappy, damaging your reputation, and potentially even having to issue refunds or provide excessive revisions. It makes what was already a difficult process vastly more stressful, and creating art feels completely different when you're doing it freely as a form of expression compared to rigidly as a product. And I can honestly admit that I severely underestimated the significance of that when I started making this my job. It gave me anxiety in ways that I never thought art could. But this is one struggle it didn't really take personal growth to get past. It just took time. The longer you do anything, the easier it becomes. It stops feeling like climbing a mountain and starts feeling like walking up a small hill. So not getting a huge reward afterwards stops feeling like such a big deal. You want a medal after running a marathon, but you don't need any reward for a walk beyond the fact that you got to enjoy the walk. Spending 40 hours on a piece only to get $50 for it feels miserable sometimes. But the more you draw, the less time that same piece takes you. And if you can get it done with the same quality within a couple hours at most, what you make from it feels fair. It's something you really only learn when you enter the workforce as a beginner artist. But because of the number of people who are doing so, just like I did, I think it's worth discussing. Professionally trained artists are gonna have an easier time of this than I did, but I didn't have the luxury of art school. I couldn't afford it. They have the skills to finish a piece that would have taken me a week back then in a few hours by the time they start working. So this isn't the hurdle for them that it was for me. And I think that's something you need to be prepared for if you're in a similar position. You won't have that advantage. It's gonna be hard to make art that's good enough for clients. It's gonna be draining and take a lot of time and effort, and you're not gonna have the satisfaction of, well, at least it's my idea brought to life, or the comfort of, well, at least if it sucks, I'm the only person I'm letting down. Your trial and error period is gonna be a high pressure one. It's gonna be stressful, and you need to either be ready for that or accept that it might not be the route you want to go. I don't think I was ready, honestly, and it broke me down more often than I'd like to admit. It still does sometimes, but I'm fortunate enough to have been able to push through it. Although that's probably more because I had to, and less because I'm just some kind of incredibly strong-willed person. Regardless, I can say that if you do push through that stage, like I eventually did, the stress does decrease. The more you do a thing, like I said, the less nervous you become about it. You learn through experience that 99% of clients aren't going to hate your art, and the fear you feel that they will is misplaced and blown out of proportion. And even when they do have issues with it, and the worst case scenario happens, it's still not as bad as you think it'll be, and it's easy to make revisions and accommodate critique. Which brings me to the final point I want to discuss, that the pain is worth it in the end. No matter what it is about doing art professionally that makes it difficult for you, it forces you to grow into a better artist. And that's something you can use for yourself, even if that growth wasn't derived from work you did for yourself. For me, it felt for a long time like I was only getting money out of the work I did, which was obviously what I wanted in order to be able to eat food and live in a home. But it felt like my only reward for creating art was my own continued existence, and not the creation of something that was significant to me. Every minute spent on art that someone else wanted felt like a minute wasted that I could have spent on something I wanted. And I wanted that that more than I wanted money, so it felt like I may as well be doing any other job that I just got money out of and nothing else, because then at least I would still have art as something I loved in my spare time, and not something that was reduced to a marketable skill and nothing more. But over time, I came to realize that that wasn't the only thing I was gaining from making art for others. It wasn't just money or professional experience, but the chance to force myself to develop my skills. Having to draw things I normally wouldn't because I was paid to forced me to learn how to depict subject matter I never would have tried to draw otherwise, and develop skills that my personal art would never have prompted me to. I couldn't stay in my comfort zone if clients requested things outside of it, and it gradually forced me to become a better artist, which was, in and of itself, its own reward. And that didn't just mean I could make better work for them. It also meant I could bring my own ideas to life better. If I was working any other day job that just made me money and nothing else, I wouldn't have anywhere near as much time to dedicate to improving my skill as an artist. My day job wouldn't involve it. But even though I didn't get to make art for me at work, I got to make art at work. And that helped me develop skills that no other job would allow me to hone. And I could, and can, use those skills after hours for my own projects and ideas. Professional art making me a better artist gave me the opportunity to develop the skills I needed to make my own art better in the process. And that's something I've come to be incredibly grateful for. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I will be the first to admit that pursuing art professionally was a journey of ups and downs that did, on many occasions, ruin it for me. I burned out, I fell out of love with art, and I felt trapped in a career that I regretted choosing. But pushing through that was worth it, and I love it more now than I ever did before, so I'm glad I did. Art is more important, beautiful, and fulfilling than I ever could have expected because I made it my job, and really, my life. Even if it took a lot of experimentation and reflection to get to a point where I was able to see it that way. Whether or not art as a job is right for you just because you love it, in my opinion, depends almost entirely on what you love about making it. And I didn't know what I loved about it when I made that choice. I'm still glad I did now, but I did regret it for a long time, and I don't want any of you to be in a similar position. So if there's anything to take away from my rambling in this video, I don't want it to be that you shouldn't make art your job. I just want it to be that it's more important than you might realize to understand your relationship with art before committing to it. Like marriage, date art first. See if that works out or you're better off as friends. Thank you for watching, and special thank you as always to channel members Joseph Solomon, TC Pratt, Haruki Saluzzo, Peachy, King Good James, Art of Amethyst Fable, Extinction Animation, Andy the Hedgehog, Kai the Memer, Jazz, Abyss Reborn, Baranote, and Jess Sayori, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, Jamisha Walker, Alengshi, Kim Yen, Crazy Asar, Gentong, Grayson Xavier, Blah Mage, TC Pratt, Finn, Celine Merriman, Eldritchia, The Stray Dog, Allura, Greg Noble, Decagon, Jenny Chan, Catbus, Mac, Lucy Yamajiki, Selena Beebe, Pride Day, Totally Shogun, Insomniac Sleep Schedule, Wing Tang Wong, Murray Greer, Potato, Jazz, Void Walker, Latte Tappy, Christian Cook, and Adam Sorovic, and I'll see you in the next one.